The nature of COVID punched us square in our American identity. We're individualists. We, the mask and all these things that I don't think are actually oppressive, but I can see why Americans would feel they are.
Joe Rogan recently had Dave Chappelle on his podcast, and Dave Chappelle dropped some absolute nukes on Joe Rogan, just really exposing a lot of institutions, exposing cancel culture within comedy and how they try to make him and others who are inside of the comedy industry say certain things, push the woke agenda and also not push obviously anti-woke agenda. They want you to push that woke propaganda. Joe Rogan, people like Joe Rogan and people like Dave Chappelle, they're not going for it. Obviously, Joe Rogan has been recently on his podcast making his opinions very, very well known. And Dave Chappelle goes on the Joe Rogan Experience. And like I said, just drops absolute bombs onto Joe Rogan about, the woke institutions, the woke cancel culture within comedy, all that stuff. So let's get into these couple of clips here from this episode of the Joe Rogan Experience with Dave Chappelle.
All weirdness is these profound trust issues. It's like I said on Letterman, these people that hoarded toilet paper and hoarded and went and bought bullets out and none of these things are good signs. I think that something about.
Let me know, were you one of those people? Because I know that there's a lot of people that are now awake that were those people hoarding toilet paper and wiping their groceries with and stuff like that. I know there was a lot of my family members that did that, and I wasn't looking at them like they were that crazy. And in the very beginning, I was like, yeah, go ahead, wipe your groceries. Like, this is probably a good idea, And then obviously a few months into the whole thing, I kind of realized, oh, this is nonsense. So let me know in the comments. Are you one of those people that did, wipe your groceries down and hoard toilet paper and stuff?
The nature of COVID punched us square in our American identity. We're individualists. We, the mask and all these things that I don't think are actually oppressive, but I can see why Americans would feel they are. Yeah, they just don't trust the messenger anymore.
There's too many mixed signals. It's hard. In the beginning, when Fauci was saying you don't have to wear a mask, and then eventually they were saying you got to wear one.
That was a huge mistake. I agree. Mistake. Yeah, if you give people information that may not be true, even if you have the intention of having them behave in a way that's beneficial for everybody, the misinformation, the way you achieve these things, the separation from ends and means can be a profound problem if you're managing something like a nation of 300 plus million people.
Yeah, and it's like you can kind of understand, obviously it's not a good thing what they were trying to do, but you can understand what their objective was with the whole thing, right? They want to make you more compliant. They want to see how far they can push things that people will just blindly follow. But in result, what they have now gotten is a whole portion of the country, a large percentage of the country. I don't want to say it's a majority, but a good bit of people within this country now not only don't fully trust what the government tells them, but will do the exact opposite. Not saying like they're going to break all the laws or anything like that, but if the government is telling us that this one thing is safe and effective, no pun intended. I mean, like, just generally, if the government says this is safe, this is good for you, these kinds of foods you should be eating, processed foods, seed oils and stuff like that, perfectly fine for you. If the government starts to tell you those things, there's a certain section of the population now that, because of what they went through during 2020 and beyond, they're going to do the exact opposite. If the government tells us something's safe, we're going to think, oh, it must not be safe. We must stay away from that at all costs. So it kind of had the opposite effect of what they were going for.
Yeah, we need to be able to trust the institution. So now you'll hear Americans say shit like, they should fix this, they should fix that. Yeah. But in reality, the idea is, we are they. Mm-hmm. Nobody feels that way right now.
Well, we did before. I think people had faith in the government in the sense that worst case scenario, even if they're incompetent, everything will stay together. Now you realize, no, it doesn't have to stay together. It can be irreversibly fucked. Like I think some of our cities are right now. I think there's some sections of LA, I don't know how the fuck they're going to bounce back. You drive down the street and you see everything boarded up. You go, how does this come back? How long does it take? Does it take a year? Does it take 10 years? Like, what is...
It doesn't come back because, and Joe Rogan probably knows this, but he wants to stay somewhat optimistic. But there's going to be people who live in LA like Bill Maher, who is going to defend how great LA is, because they can never acknowledge that their side of things, the people that they voted for, the people who they shill for constantly, members of their woke cult, they can never accept or acknowledge the fact that they did a poor job. because it's not about making the country a better place. It's not about having morals and principles. It's all about my emotions. Did my side win or did my side lose? They think if their side is in power, they are winning regardless of how far downhill each city or the entire country overall goes. It doesn't matter to them. And Joe Rogan probably knows this, but he wants to stay more, more optimistic, which is understandable. Dave Chappelle also knows this.
What is this?
And I have no point of reference to even make an educated guess. I've never seen any of this before.
Nobody
I'll
has.
tell you, like, okay, so my experience during COVID, I live in Ohio. I don't live in a cough's distance from anyone I don't know. You know what I mean? It's open space. So we were isolated, but it wasn't oppressive. I could go outside. I could take a walk. I could whatever.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's get back to the video.
I go to New York. I was telling you maybe a couple weeks ago when they opened all the comedy clubs back up, just to show support for the clubs that nurtured, my career early on. And it was a tough one. I'd been there before, like the Saturday Night Live week. But that week was, unseasonably warm. Biden had just won that weekend, so people were celebratory. This time around, I got a sense of the emotional carnage that happened in that city. And
it's people like Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan, and I always say, like, the people like Joe Rogan and Russell Brand. Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, and Russell Brand, and these guys, they're probably still left-leaning 100%, but they've been driven out of the left wing, the actual left wing, what they call the left wing, what I call the woke cult or the woke mob. Because if you don't 100% agree with every single opinion that they have, if you have any sort of common sense out there, like, the only way that you can be accepted into the woke cult and stay a member is if you do defend LA and New York and all these cities that are completely going downhill because of what the left has done in those cities, the carnage the left has brought onto those cities. And because Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan acknowledge the fact that those cities are going downhill, and they're going to acknowledge the fact in 1 second here that comedy is getting ruined by these cancel culture weirdos. If you don't acknowledge that, or if you do acknowledge that they're going downhill, you're kicked out of the woke cult and you're canceled. And that's what happened to Dave Chappelle. The only difference between most people and Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan is that they just don't care about being canceled. They have their own platforms. They don't need anybody to employ them, so they can't really be canceled.
It'll be okay.
I spent the day with Joey Diaz and Ralphie May.
Oh wow, 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, who else would you have rather been with? When you think back of the tragedy, I bet you can think of 4 or 5 things you laughed at.
Yeah,
that day. Not about the tragedy, but we just laugh.
We were high as fuck, and we were just freaking out about the fact there's no planes. Like, look at the sky, there's no planes. No planes.
It's that. Comedians.
Yeah.
It's funny that this genre is under attack because to me, this is the everything's going to be okay genre.
It's under attack because people have this ability to complain about things now, and then people pile on. It's a new thing, and they realize it's very useful. It's a good weapon, and if you choose targets, you could take targets out. You can go after them, and so it becomes a hobby.
100%. It's a sport. I've been saying this for a long, long time, since probably like 2020, 2021. I've been calling it a sport for these people. Back when Gina Carano got canceled, they don't actually care that they don't care about Gina Carano's morals and principles, because if they did care about Gina Carano's morals and principles and who she was as as a person, she's obviously not dead. I'm talking about her like she's in past tense or something. But if they actually cared back then about who she was as a person, they wouldn't have canceled her, because she's a nice person. She's a very genuine and nice person. But they don't care about any of that. It's a sport to them. They see, oh, we have an opportunity to cancel Dave Chappelle. Well, is he inside the woke cult? No, the answer is no. He actually criticizes the left for certain things, even though he criticizes the right for a whole lot more. Because he criticizes the left even a little bit, he's our next target. We must cancel him, and it's all just fun. It's all fun and games. The only difference is, like I said earlier, Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle don't care about getting canceled. They couldn't care less about someone trying to cancel them, because they have all the money they could possibly want. They're uncancelable. So you got to pick better targets for your sport.
Like if you see a window and you got a rock, you feel like throwing that rock. And so a lot of times these targets aren't justified, but you can find a justification. You could say, oh, they put these words together in this order. And if you look at it in quotes written down on paper, you go, oh.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's get back to the video.
Well, this is ableist, or this is this, or this is that. This is something we can attack. Let's attack. This is transphobic. This is homophobic. Attack. And it's a recreation. It's recreational outrage.
It is exactly. You know, the last time I came on your show when Donnell was here, and I fucked up. I looked at the comment section. I'll never do that shit again.
I feel him on that, dude. I feel him. The comment section can be a wild place. You got to pick and choose when you're in the right mood to look at that thing. But I try to read you guys' comments all the time. But I definitely feel that, you know, being on Dave Chappelle's level and looking at the comment section, probably not the best place. But yeah, they have all these istophobes made up nowadays that they can basically pick any single thing, any single opinion that you actually stand on and cancel you for it, because it can be some kind of istophobe. They'll find some kind of istophobe out there, deep dive into the dictionary, deep dive into their encyclopedia of these istophobes, and they'll find one to cancel you for 100%. It's all just a sport to them. It's all just a hobby, like Joe Rogan was saying there. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this appearance from Dave Chappelle on Joe Rogan, talking about, you know, how people just don't trust institutions anymore. People just don't trust, you know, the government. They don't trust educational institutions. They don't trust anything after, you know, 2020 and that whole situation. And then about comedy and that being under attack. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this whole Joe Rogan experience clip. If you did enjoy the video though, please leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and hope to see you guys on the next one.